welcome to Rockhound Talk Live. I am your host, Amber Nicole, and this is my co-host, Ben Korn.
Hey everyone.
Yes, this is the only live Rockhound podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And today we have this is our seasonal in-person live experience, or we get to actually be in person with our guests. It would be nice if we could do that on every episode, but for right now we just do it once a season. And for season 3 we have Wayne Binsfeld. So today earlier we went agate hunting, and this was my first time agate hunting. It was a great experience, so we're all going to kind of share our experience, our adventure today, and some photos. So instead of our regular intro that Ben and I have, this will be our how we start.
So we can show one of our photos here, or videos, I guess I should say. So Amber found some Lake Superior Agates. So let's look at Amber's video here.
Oh my god. Okay, I can't believe this.
That's
So
not Amber's video. All right. This is Amber's video.
Yeah, this is my favorite one. Yeah, with my little antler.
That would be a good one.
Yeah, and then I got the old spray bottle out.
As you can tell, it's really windy today.
Yeah, it was. Hey, Amy. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
So that was Amber's.
That was like not my very first one I found, but that was like my favorite one of today. And it was just nice that I actually can say I went agate hunting, because I feel like I've been on my rockhound journey over the years, and I'm like, I've never gone agate hunting.
So yeah, and then I guess the biggest find today, I sort of spliced some videos together, but
this was
finally found
this good shit.
a pounder. So I've been trying for so long.
He's in the 1 pound club.
So I finally made it. So we'll watch that, and you can hear my excitement.
can't believe this. So see my bucket right there. I've been hiking this area. It's pretty rocky. Amber and Wayne are way at the end of the field, all the way down there. Kind of started to run out of rock, but I decided to walk over here, and I saw this. And I don't know, it's so dark, but I picked it up. I immediately put it back down because I was like, if it is, oh my god.
Yeah, I had to get my reaction.
Just hardly exposed at all.
I think that's banding right there.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
This might be my first pounder. Oh my god. Oh my god.
You already know it's a pound too.
Oh my god.
It's so heavy.
Oh my god.
Almost a
I think
pound
I
and a
just found my
half.
first
That's
pounder.
awesome.
This is so gnarly. Oh my god. Oh my god, I gotta get this cleaned up.
So then I ran to Wayne, who
This
has
is
some
gonna be
water.
insane. Oh my god. This is definitely, oh my god.
I'd say it's close to a pound and a half. Well, pound 2 or 3 ounces. Holy smokes, look at that color though.
I know, it's insane.
That
There's
is
like
a
greens
beautiful thing.
and reds and
I gotta clean this out. No, it's still in there, and it actually, because there's like a little geode center.
can't
There's
believe
like
it.
little tiny crystals in the
Hey,
very middle of it. Yeah, I almost never bring water.
Yeah, that thing's got
bottles
iron out,
to
too.
spray
Wow.
off
Look at that window.
walking around, just because it's added weight.
How cool is that?
Thankfully, someone else had some.
Crazy pants.
Oh,
Yeah,
look at that.
That's my very first Lake Superior Agate pounder.
It was a good day. It was a good day.
Yeah, so we had some great. We found a whole bunch of other agates too. I don't even know how many I found. I know Amber, you found a handful too.
I'm gonna go through them tonight, definitely, for sure. Yeah, that was us. Yay!
Yeah, so here's a photo of us today out at the last field that we were at. So
yeah, so like over our seasons, we're gonna like have our like in person. We'll have like some kind of collage, because we've got one for a group one from last year. So
Where'd you
that's
go last
fun.
year for that?
We were with Joe Sukup, Herkimer Diamonds in New York.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I probably should have said that in here.
Yeah.
I was looking over there, and I gotta get used to the in-person thing.
Yeah.
Last year we were on one computer, and then it was funny. And then I realized that we only had my name on it.
Oh yeah.
Because we were
Yeah.
on my account. So we're learning, guys. Like we'll get it all straightened out and right eventually.
Yeah. So Kat obviously out of the bay because Wayne's with us already, but our guest tonight is Wayne Binsfeld. Wayne is a really great agate collector. He does some amazing lapidary work, both with just polishing, and then his carvings are really great. And then
badass.
he also does a whole bunch of other designs too. So we might kind of touch on some of those too. This shirt here is a Wayne Binsfeld design. Wayne's wearing one of his shirts and hats that he designed too. So he's got a whole bunch of other.
I didn't realize that was his shirt. That's cool.
Yeah, so he's got sort of some agate.
Crystals and like dino bone.
Yeah, yeah. So, and if you're interested in any of this stuff, waynesworldagates.com is where you can find some of his merchandise. As well. So yes, thank you, Wayne, for joining us.
Yes, thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Which is just, by the way, which is funny, like Ben and I have like a weird story becoming like host and co-host. But like Wayne and I were like, I was friends with Wayne on Facebook before I knew Ben, and Ben's been friends with him on Facebook. So it was kind of odd, like when we're like figuring out like guests and stuff, we're like, oh yeah, I'm friends with him. I might know him on Facebook. So it's cool. Our Rockhound community is like so close knit.
Yeah. So
yes, tell us, Wayne. Tell us a bit about your journey and how you even began picking up agates.
I guess I picked up agates as a little kid. I remember them redoing the road as a little kid, and me and my brother would go look for them. But in my early 20s, I kind of went out with my brother, and they were putting a road through this field by my parents' house. And where did I set that case here?
Oh yeah, the one when you were 20.
Set it behind me. I'm gonna just grab it.
Yeah.
Really quick. I got it.
Yes. Oh, he's got some fantastic agates. Oh my.
yes,
God.
This is the
show
one that
and
got
tell.
me
Oh.
hooked. This is the one that got me hooked in my adult life anyways. If we can get it in there where you can see it a little bit.
He is
4 or
Chelsea.
5 ounce
Definitely.
anyways. But I had started collecting agates in my 20s and 30s, and I'd say almost every weekend I was out picking agates. Any landscape rock in St. Cloud that's been there for a while, I've probably picked it. But my hobby of looking for agates and artwork just kind of naturally combined together. Was working at a dental lab for a little while and was doing carvings on the side and decided to do my art full time, and just not looking back for now. You got to do what you love. Life's too short not to do what you love. So.
Yeah. So yeah, you've been a Rockhound forever, and then pretty much forever. Like if you're over like 2 decades of rockhounding, that's forever. And so you've been a Rockhound, but then Lapidary, you started about 13 years ago. And tell us how that started off for you to where like you were to where you are now.
Sure.
I forgot to send Ben a picture of his mushroom thing. That was really cool, guys. Like he makes this really cool, like cute little like mushroom with the tree and the moss. It looks like grass, and it's so cute.
Oh, yeah.
And it lights up. Did you get it? Oh, there, yeah. Like
Yeah, so you can see some of it here, and then I don't remember if you brought any with you,
I
Wayne.
got that one.
oh yes.
I don't have the light up one, but the original mushroom, they're deer antler. This one's actually
Yeah, show him. Yeah.
a moose antler tip here. I put earth magnets in the bottom so you can interactive sculptures so you can pull them off and take a look at them. But the first one I originally did had a little smiley face on it, and I hollowed out the stem, and you can spin it around basically, and the eyes and the mouth would light up. People liked it, so I kept making them. Now I see people making them all over the country, which is awesome.
They're so cute. These little agate mushrooms. I love them. So, but you didn't start off there though. Yeah, that's something you came into. So when you were
Right.
starting off lapidary work, like where did you begin and what got you started in that?
Sure. I had been picking for, I don't know, good 15, 20 years, and I really want to do something, eventually make jewelry when I retired or this or that. And I had started at the dental lab. I would say it was about 10 years ago I started. And I traded about 15 pounds of really nice agate for a trim saw and that flat lap that I had in there
Yeah.
now. It was brand new. Started playing around with that. And while I was working at the dental lab, I worked there 6 years, so I got real good experience. It's a very similar tool. So like the Fordham I use for carving, very similar to the handpiece you'd use for doing crowns or...
That's interesting that you
looking
said
at
that
pictures.
because I kind of already thought that when I saw you, and I was like, no, that's a weird thing to think about. But that's where you started at. So.
Right, it is. It really is. Because my thought was your muscle memory. I worked 8 hours a day for 6 years. You're really used to it, so you get used to the time. But you'd work on a lathe and a handpiece. Really got started there and just playing around with it on the side. And then my friend Tony, he let me borrow his arbor. I got to use that for a couple months, and I just fell in love. I had to get an arbor, so I got.
Well, for the guests who don't know what an arbor is.
An arbor is like a stationary motor with an axle in the middle there. You can see the Highland Park one there.
That is so cool.
That's the CB8.
That's like big league right there.
Yeah, that was the big step in 2020. I got that, and I really enjoy having a bigger wheel. You can get away with the 6-inch doing smaller stuff, but this has the space to do bigger stuff in there. So,
And I think we have a video of you using it.
yeah. Looks like I'm roughing out a wolf kind of that one is on my wolf.
By the way, if you guys have any issues sharing them, let us know because this is our first time using one mic for 3 people. So give us feedback, let us know. Yes, hey, flash in your pan, Bob. Hey, Bob.
I also Rockhound on Instagram too.
All right, Rockhound. Hey.
Yes, we are also on Instagram.
Yeah.
So make sure to follow us everywhere.
Yes. If you are not subscribed to our YouTube, like we really would like to get more viewers on there. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe to Rockhound Talk Live and click that bell so that you can get notifications when we go live.
Yeah. So this is the wolf that you were working on.
Right. Yep. Just roughing it out. So a lot of the carvings, if I can, I'll take the time and I'll rough it out. This is a 60 grit wheel there. So I'll rough out the basic shape using the side of the wheel. Something I need to upgrade to is like a V wheel. It's very similar to that, but it'd be a rounded edge or a V shape. And ideally, if you're carving, you can rough out a ton and save a ton of time by doing such a thing, and then using the handpiece to finish. So rough out, refine, and finish is kind of the main process of doing the carving.
And for those who are maybe watching through our audio podcast, what was the name of the machine that you were using?
That was a CB8 Highland Park model.
Okay.
And then the handpiece I use is SR Fordham. It's a jeweler type package.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we've got some more photos. Let me see. These are some photos from today.
Yeah.
The Agatorium.
Yeah, so the Agatorium.
Agatorium, that's cool.
And then you can sort of see Wayne's process too on the left, where some of it looks like you sort of maybe started carving, and then you just got your design sort of.
Oh, right.
Out.
I roughed it out on the wheels like I was talking about,
Yeah.
and then I redrew on it kind of where I wanted stuff. I'll use just a Sharpie, like a permanent marker when I'm doing that, just as a basic guide. And sometimes I won't use that, and I'll just freeform carve without. But it just helps because you can kind of fine tune where you want it. And if you don't even like where you drew it, you can always adjust it and see what it's going to look like. So definitely helpful in the process.
And then they turned out like this.
Yeah, that's the one wolf finished.
Look
I did
at
some little lapis eyes in there.
That is just so sick. Oh my god.
So do you have like an idea of like I want to make a wolf or a dinosaur, and then you look for something that matches that, or do you see something and go, this looks like a dinosaur, I'm going to carve it into that?
Yeah, so even we'll take this wolf that you just showed me roughing out, for instance. I showed you that picture you showed earlier, that big bin of agates. It's my carving bin. I'll just buy agates that look good for carving. So I literally dug around in there looking for one that was the right shape for a wolf, that I could see the basic image in. So a lot of times I'm a minimalist where I look for what's already there and work with that. Or if I'm at a rock show, I'll see a particular agate. It looks just perfect for a heart in the center or whatnot. So this one, it just had the basic shape of the wolf. And it had a really kind of cool crystal impression. I've done ones where I do the string actually through the ears of the wolf. But this one had that crystal impression. It would have been too thin to go through there, so we just put it right in the middle, and it really worked out well that way. Nice. So I just try to work with the basic shape of the stone, and then take into consideration like the banding. Obviously, this one had so much banding on the top, so when you're wearing it, the person looking down will get to enjoy all the banding. Yeah.
Nice.
So when you're deciding, so you not only do you decide what kind of animal or whatever the art's going to be, you're first kind of examining which agate is going to fit that idea.
Sometimes that way, and sometimes I just see something in a rock and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. But I try to work more on inspiration. So if I see it and I feel inspired,
you just
then I do it. If I don't feel inspired, I don't do it. I just don't.
I love that.
So we did have a question from Amy here that says, do you use anything for ventilation when you're working on the stones?
I do. I use a P100 from 3M. So basically when you're doing a lot of carving on, say, like 60 grit or 100 grit or even 240, I wear a mask. And in the later wheels, I don't necessarily, but it's silica dust. So basically you think of it as sand in the air. There's sand in the air outside too. So as long as you're keeping the mist down, you're not removing much more material after 600 grit. I usually don't wear it. And sometimes when I'm carving with the handpiece, you'll want to wear a mask if it's spitting water off. But some of the bits, basically it's not moving any material into the air. So I won't wear a mask when I'm carving. So that's why I can talk sometimes when I'm carving, and other times I don't say anything.
That makes sense.
I always try to go live carving, and sometimes I just can't respond unless I'm going to pull the mask down here and say, hey guys.
That makes sense. That makes sense now. Like I've sometimes wondered, and so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And before we go too much further, I did want to mention Curtis was asking about identification software or apps on your phone. I just want to say, like, none of those apps will work. They rely too much on color. A lot of different minerals can be different colors. So if you're looking for identification, definitely pick up a book. There's specific
groups on Facebook.
Yes, groups on Facebook, and make sure that the groups on Facebook allow identification. There's a lot of groups that don't allow identification. There's also a lot of books in different areas. So, for example, there's like a Lake Superior Rocks and Minerals book, and it's very good for identifying rocks and minerals there.
So first, Bill, before you identify anything, you need to know location. Like, location is important because you can have something somewhere that looks so similar to something else, and they're not even the same. So location is very, very important to know. So if you're trying to identify something that somebody gave to you, definitely always ask, like, where did this come from? Just location is super, super important. Just that's your beginning tool. Like, where'd you find it? And that helps you narrow down so much information, just knowing the location, because most people know in a certain locality what you're going to find there and what you're not going to find there, because they already know what the geological process that occurred there. So location is super, super important. So like anytime somebody like messaged me like, what is this? The first thing I say is, where did you find it? And you're going to usually have people that are trying to help you identify something like if they're not asking you where they found it, maybe question the identification, because you need to know where it was found. And
Yeah.
I was gonna add on that too, like, so there's definitely resources that you can go to, but like you can do a whole lot of testing like yourself to help identify. Like one simple thing is like there's a lot of calcite, like, and a lot of quartz, and there's a lot that look very similar. And you know, for like a simple test to determining if something is calcite, you can use vinegar, something that you don't even need to ask anyone. You know, if it starts to fizz, like it's likely calcite. So like just there's a lot of different tests you can do too, like, you know, the hardness scratch test. So there's a lot of ways to help identify. And if you're not familiar with those ways though, like definitely Facebook books though, for sure. Like of the locality though, because you really want to narrow it down. Because if you get like a general book, you might be trying to figure out a stone that looks like something that's not what it is.
Yeah, and I actually brought this up because I was identifying some rocks recently, and if you buy some of those rock and mineral books, they will show you the like museum specimen crystals of what the mineral is. And so you need to kind of take into effect that you might be looking at something that isn't that. So for example, I had a book for rocks and minerals that if you look up epidote, it's like these perfect crystals that, you know, it's almost like tourmaline, and they're green and they look really nice. But when you find epidote, for instance, on the north shore of Lake Superior, it is more just sort of a pistachio green, almost like a coating. So it's important to kind of know like what it might look not as like a very nice specimen. I will say rock and mineral clubs are really good. A lot of members are open to helping other people identify things if you've got any questions. So there's a lot of different resources out there, but I will say the apps and software do not work. It is
don't waste your time or money.
Yes. Yeah. So
or if you go to a rock show, go ask the different vendors. They're great for identifying.
And your local rock clubs, you know, that's a great resource for you as well.
Yeah. And these were some other things. So I guess you maybe want to explain to people what might not know about Lake Superior Agates what the one on the right is?
Oh, yes.
The one on the right is a water level Lake Superior Agate.
Can you explain water level?
So water level would be just straight flat lines within the agate instead of a concentric pattern. Fortification banding would be like a completed pattern. And water level is just straight flat lines that don't connect in a concentric pattern. But what we have here is a really rare water level where on a particular layer there's mosaic tiling. And that only occurs in a thin layer on the water level. And basically like this one I had got at the rock shop and the rock and art shop in St. Cloud, and it had just a little thin green layer on the top. Somebody had tumbled it. And it really just had to have that little bit removed to expose that really kind of rare mosaic one. Ben had one here that he needs to do the same thing with. So
yeah, I was just showing Wayne because I haven't done much, you know, as far as polishing and lapidary stuff goes. So I've actually got, see how well this can show up. So this is a water level, you know, Lake Superior Agate, but you can see some of the like white and black. So that's the mosaic, and if you turn it on the top, you can kind of see there's, you know, some white and black. So this whole area over here just needs to be ground down, and hopefully it'll look like the rock that Wayne's got.
It's going to be amazing because not only is it a mosaic, which is rare, the size of the squares in that one are ginormous. So it's going to have big black and white squares. I would think that one's going to be just as good as this one, if not better quality-wise.
So Amy asked, is that mosaic on top?
Right.
Yes.
The very top part with the little checkered pattern is what they call mosaic, where it looks like a mosaic painting where they use
totally get it. Yep. So I was only going off of what I know mosaic is, and I was like, that looks like mosaic, so I'm assuming you're talking about that. Just real quick, so welcome Curtis, welcome Suze, hey, what's up, and
hey,
welcome Thomas Hebert, hey.
Yeah, and then also Wayne was really great. He sent in a bunch of videos too of some of his different carvings. So I just want to share some of those. So we've got this one here. So I don't know if there's anything special you want to mention about this.
So cool.
It's available on the webpage.
It is so cool. Like
This
love
is
it.
Madagascar agate. So they actually heat treat these and tumble them, and just perfect canvases for what I do. Sometimes they're just the eye and just the right spot, like that one. I saw it.
Yeah, you got to do something with it.
I bought it online to make an owl out of it because I saw it in there. So that was one where I bought the rock, saw it in there ahead of time, and then had the intent to do.
No, what makes that, just aside from the incredible carving, what makes that agate what makes it different than an LSA? Because it looks so similar.
Just location, like you said.
Okay.
But the color of red is going to be quite different in comparison if you were to compare them side by side.
Okay, so is it just lighter then,
It's a
or?
little lighter in
Okay.
color, just different tonal differences.
Okay.
The yellows you're not going to see in a Lake Superior as much like that,
Okay,
especially on the inside of a Lake Superior agate.
okay, that's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've also got looks like this was a flower and some different carvings.
Yeah, just some
Cool.
random different carvings. That one Tommy actually wrapped in a piece. That
That
pumpkin.
is cool.
Yeah, Tommy Bartlett. If you're interested in wire wrapping, Tommy Bartlett is one of the best.
We'll have to get him on the show next season.
He's pretty shy. I don't know. He might have to. twist
Really?
his arm.
Yeah.
Some videos though. I mean, you didn't seem shy.
We'll see.
He might be down. I just thought that last week. I was like, you should go do your show. That he would love that.
Yeah, so I think this is so let me get the volume on here. So I think this is a video of kind of going through some of the carvings here. So
Just explaining my process
Yes.
with this little smiley face mushroom and how I use the arbor and the forehead.
all right, let's take a listen.
So here is a finished carving that I did. A happy little mushroom.
Let us know if you guys
So I roughed
can't
this
hear it. Let us
mushroom
know.
out on a 60 grit wheel, diamond wheel, on a lapidary arbor. So a lot of my carvings I will rough out parts that I'm able to with an arbor. You could use a V wheel. It's a wheel like this, but it's shaped kind of in a V shape. Works great for roughing things out. So I used a 60 grit wheel. This one was roughed out at 60 grit right there. Here's an example of a turtle that I had roughed out on the wheels. So I'll rough them out using the lapidary arbor if I can. Otherwise I can rough them out with 80 grit diamond bits in the Fordham. I use a SR Fordham with a number 30 handpiece.
Is that what they use when they do acrylic
That allows you
nails?
to do a couple different
No,
sizes.
it's a little different.
Okay.
And it comes
I've never had my
with
nails
a-
done, so I'm not sure.
So after I've roughed it out, I would carve the details in the face. I would go to 120, shape this down a little bit, then I would carve the detail in the face, and then I would polish the surface of the stem and underneath the cap.
And I will
with
say, if you're
lapidary
really
arbor.
interested in some of these carvings that Wayne does, he does go live on
Using
TikTok and show you
120
live
Yes.
him
on
carving,
here,
which is really
and
cool.
then
Yeah.
a
TikTok
360
and
on my Beacon Star
Facebook,
hard
Yeah.
wheel,
and I'm
and then
working.
a
Well,
600
now I can.
hard wheel.
It changed from YouTube
Then I
to
go
be
back
100
to this
instead
one
of
and I
1,000,
use
so
the
I'll be going live.
Yeah, I was wondering
3,000,
because
we do 12
we go live.
I
I
want
was
to see like you guys and do all three at the same time.
Yeah,
one day.
I was like, we're on YouTube and we don't have 1,000. I was wondering what you were talking about.
Yeah, I was
Oh, she is
mistaken.
down.
Yeah. I
Here's
was like,
some nail
man.
there.
I'm like, how did we get it?
For carving the face, I used a cylinder bit for the eyes there. Let me see if I can find one right here. So, I used a
Now, are
flathead
these kind of
cylinder
pricey
bit,
toys?
like so. 80 grit.
The arbor is pretty spendy. I bought a lot of extra wheels. I don't remember exactly, but it was like 2,400. I want to say
Oh, yeah.
at least. But the Fordham's pretty reasonable. It's about like 340, 325
Really?
if you shop around.
That big thing?
No, the Fordham. I'm talking about
Oh,
the carving unit.
the
big thing is, I think
That's
it was
the
between like
arbor.
3,200 with all the
okay.
extra
Okay,
wheel.
that makes sense. Okay.
I think the base unit's about 2,400.
Because that's way bigger than a Cap King.
Yes.
Yeah, way bigger.
Well, Cap King, they make a 6 and an 8 inch.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Out the eyes, and then I used a hollow point bit for the pupils in the eyes.
And that hollow point you can use for drilling holes.
And then a reverse cone 8mm bit, that is 120 for cutting the details in the mouth and the eyebrows. So that's a little example of how I go from beginning to end, from rough to polish on a carving.
So how long would like that mushroom? How long would that take you?
Gosh, how long would that take? People always ask me, how long did that take?
Yeah.
The creative space, I don't know. I get lost in it. But I would say roughly about 45 minutes to an hour to rough it out and then carving it. So I would say total less than 2 hours on that one.
That blows my mind because that would probably take me like forever.
That's with that fancy equipment, though. It really speeds up the process with the arbor.
You gotta totally take your mushrooms to like those like raving festival. Like, do you go to that? What's that one place? It's so the Electric Festival.
Oh, the Electric Forest.
You gotta, dude,
like-
you gotta go to Electric Forest, dude. Oh my god, you gotta go to Electric Forest. Those mushrooms would go crazy.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, I guess.
Oh, you got okay.
I got
Don't you agree that he would
yeah. There's
You'd like love it.
in Western Michigan. I remember throwing Whitehall because I had to be there for work. And they have this big festival called Electric Forest where it's like people literally go into the woods and there's like electronic music and all sorts of
it's like
hippie
rave.
stuff.
Yeah,
And
it's super cool.
Yeah.
I'm too old for that shit now, but I miss my days on that. If I was younger, I totally would be there. But yeah, oh my gosh, they would love that there. Oh my gosh. I would, I'm gonna send you information about being a vendor. I'm telling you, the mushrooms would go crazy. And we're mushrooms.
Check it out.
So here's this looks like a bear. Oh, and some of the other carvings you got. So we watched the owl.
Just a random TikTok of a little squirrel. That was the first squirrel I think I did. That was the second squirrel.
What was your inspiration so you did the mushroom first, right? What inspired you to do that?
I always drew mushrooms as a kid. A lot of my carvings are similar to drawings I would draw as a kid.
Okay.
To be honest.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, there's the light up one. I don't think it lights up. I don't think it's in the video showing it light up. But
That is
that one lights up.
it's so cool.
That was the first horse I ever did. That one I just saw it on the side where it worked out. Oh, okay.
Hey Willie, thanks for joining us.
That butterfly took a long time to
That is
wow.
the
gorgeous.
depth in it.
Okay, I gotta go back.
That is so cool. That's so cool.
And that's so what
That's
you're
an agate, guys. Like
so what you're seeing there is you're trying to get like the different colored bands and then you're carving sort of so that like the different colors will show up as different layers then is that
Yeah, so when I'm looking at an agate, you want to contrast in layers, basically. Well, this one just happened to be a thick yellow layer, so I had to really work down a long ways to get the cameo carving. But yeah, to get the contrast, really, and then you can basically use it like a canvas to make anything if you have a nice contrasted agate like that.
wow.
That was a special project for a friend. My other friend made
that's
some
super cool, and I love it too.
They're silver teeth. He made those, and then I fit them into there.
That is so
Yeah.
cool. Like, so one thing I learned about Wayne is that like he does have like sometimes people can give you specific requests and I know you're a busy artist, so I know this because I know a lot of really good artists and they don't always take commission work or they take special requests. But I know that you have done some. And oh my gosh, it's like there was one that we had saw earlier today, and I didn't know what you said it was, and then what I was seeing, I wasn't connecting it, but then when you showed it all to me, I was like, whoa. It was like, who would have ever thought?
The evolving creative process, sometimes when I make something and I work on it a bit and leave it sit and then work on it a bit, it just slowly...
It's really
It's
cool.
like my mind works on stuff when I sleep sometimes.
Yeah,
I think we all
that's
do.
really cool. You're really, really incredibly talented.
Yeah, and we had a question here from Suze that said, like, how long have you been carving animals and different things out of agates?
I really started about 10 years ago with the lapidary stuff. So I started kind of carving right away. I had that flat lap and a trim saw, and then I actually borrowed a Dremel from my friend Larry, which he let me borrow it for years. He's like, I don't need it back, don't worry about it.
It was a forever borrow.
So I really carved on a Dremel, which I don't recommend for the first number of years. It's just a little too fast for the diamonds, but you can get it done, and it does work if that's all you have. I got a whip attachment for that and a foot pedal, and that made kind of the difference of being able to do it instead of holding the big Dremel like this, and trying to do it that way. But
yeah, like, we see these kind of things on, from overseas. You can see, but to see someone actually doing it, and then just to see the individual creativity, it's not like a skull that you would get, at a rock show for, a couple bucks, because this is just so detailed and just so unique.
Yeah, and this is in a Lake Superior Agate, right?
that's another one of the Madagascar ones, and this one,
I've seen
they
this
dyed
one.
that one to make it black and white. And this has actually got put into a piece. I don't think I brought that one with.
Oh my gosh, I love this. Is
but
one
that
of my
one's
favorites.
On the webpage, it's wrapped in silver. I kind of do a high grade. There's the
That's
finished piece.
sick. That's sick.
Yeah, and I think that's a Packamer in the top there,
Oh yeah,
where they have.
Yeah. the Pakistan like Herkimer diamonds. Yeah.
Yeah, they glow under UV because they have a little bit of petroleum in them. I think. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, did you wrap that yourself?
I did the wrap. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
cool.
Tommy's kind of inspired me to keep
That's
futzing
cool.
with that more and more, and really happy how some of mine are turning out. So, doing a little high grade.
Yeah, so Stephen was talking about dental work for the Agate character. I don't know, Stephen, if you heard earlier that he used to actually work in like a dental lab, dude. And it's crazy because when I looked at his lives, that's the first thing that popped in my head was like the dentist.
Well, it
And
sounds like it too.
And I had no idea that that's where you started doing that. So it's cool. That's super cool.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Wayne brought a bunch of different agates and different things. I don't know if there's anything that you want to show off that you brought.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of stuff here. I don't know.
Yeah. So and Wayne's got just a top of the line agate collection here.
Yeah.
And some of his work too. So this.
A personal find of mine. I don't know if I can get it where you can see it, but just covered in lines on the bottom.
Oh yeah.
And this one has a kind of a special story. I had it in my pocket at a music festival at Shangri-La, and I went to the backstage literally and went up on stage.
Oh my
Gave Mike
God.
Love a hug.
Oh,
And
cool.
came around the back. I guess I must have dropped it on my way back. Didn't realize it. I'm like, there's no way I'm ever getting that back. And
How'd you get it?
my friend Mark's like, well, just put a thing on the page. Somebody will probably message you about it. They're really just
Stop
loving
it.
and
A
whatever.
rock?
It took a few months, but I got it back. I got it back, and I was going to make them an agate mushroom because that one was really special to me. And
Who
they ended up
gets rock
picking
that?
something else to give their friends. So
Dude, that's
yeah, it
crazy.
was quite the story.
So, like, do you think? Okay, this is you gotta really think about this. Do you think it was still there and they went and looked for it, or somebody picked it up?
No, he found it. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, my friend found that because somebody showed it to somebody, and then somebody saw it on the page, and it was just kind of coincidental. I
Yeah,
just was like, I'll have faith. Maybe it'll come back to me, you know.
What a ring? Okay, a rock, dude. That's special. I should say a rock, an agate.
Yeah, that one was fun. Here's another one of the little. Just there. Here's another one of the
That's
little
pretty.
high grade ones. So I'm doing little carving. I did a little Lake Superior Agate flower, and then I wrapped it in silver and did
That's
a little
really pretty.
Ethiopian accent on it.
Yeah, that's really pretty.
Thank you.
Maybe when you said you wire wrap a little, like I was thinking like just like that's not a little.
Well,
That's
I've
really
been
good.
wire wrapping probably 7 or 8 years, but I
That's
don't
really
do it
good.
that much in the
Yeah,
winter when I
that's
can't
good.
go picking. I recommend, it's a fun hobby, easy thing to do with your stones. And I actually am going to probably be starting to teach some carving classes at the Rock and Art Shop in St. Cloud. So I'll have a beginning wire wrapping class, and then like a beginning lapidary, and advanced, and then along with carving here. Basically, I just have to set that up with them, and they're open to that. So
That's cool.
yeah,
Good
that's
for
kind
you.
of, my next step is wanting to teach and
Yeah.
do teaching. All along here, kind of one of my life's missions is just to create and inspire. And I hear people message me saying just that. So I'm doing something right.
Yeah, I love it. That's great.
Do you guys want to see some?
Yes,
videos?
yes.
Yeah. Show some more.
Okay.
These are great.
We'll just pan through a couple here. Okay, a little
I
flower.
remember
That's
that
like
one.
a heart in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like I follow you too much. I'm like, I know that one. I know that one.
But this was just a whole nodule where it had that white layer kind of a ways deeper, like that butterfly, where I really had to work down
Yeah.
to get that contrast. But once I was able to get it, it just stuck out like a sore thumb.
Wow.
And is that the Fordham then that you use to carve into the rock to get those lines?
This one I did not use the arbor at all. This one
He
was
was humbled real quick.
strictly the Fordham. Yeah, you have to have a lot of patience for wire wrapping. It's not for everybody. Not for everybody.
Listen, I bought the wire and it's still sitting on my dresser. Okay.
I
I was like, oh, this looks fun, and I was like, what the? This is not for me.
yeah. I've tried. I've like thought about it. I'm like, oh, Tommy Bartlett makes these amazing. They look so good. And then I see people that are like, this is my first one. Okay, I'm not. Like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to do anything close.
Give it 20 and then judge if you're going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, those first ones are like, woo.
Oh, my first one was pretty hideous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be those people posting. Well, that would be me posting them. So I was like, yep, I will stick to finding. So this is what I say. I find rocks, I don't make them pretty.
Anybody that wants to learn wire wrapping, though, just look up wire wrapping tutorials on YouTube. Really, they have everything you could ever want to know on there. I've looked on there, learned how to do the tree of life and a lot of other stuff too.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just show you one more little hybrid one. This one was a little Koyamitos agate flower.
Oh, I love that.
So I was doing this wire wrap, not intending to put a flower
The
on
copper
it at
on
all.
Oh my god, I love it.
Didn't intend it, and there was a space here.
So pretty.
And I had already carved this Koyamitos flower, and it was sitting with my wire wrapping stuff. And I had this space. I was like, oh, they'd be together. Let's see if I can wrap them together. And it worked out pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty.
With the flash there.
It's super pretty.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I really enjoy the Lapidary working with that. This one was one I actually had bought from overseas. It had just the almost perfect heart shape in the middle here. And I just had to carve that little teeny top section out. It only probably took about 20 minutes.
And these
Really
are all
kinda
things that some
cool.
people can purchase.
You guys don't eat. Some of these things are on the webpage. Some aren't. Like this
Okay.
one's not. You guys don't have a UV flashlight, do you, handy? No.
Oh, you get tons upstairs.
I
Downstairs.
Don't worry,
I
if it's
can
not-
grab one. Hold on. Let me go
Okay.
grab one.
Sounds good.
You guys.
Is
Let me
it,
show you
oh yeah,
something
because
else.
is that from Pakistan?
No, this is a Turkish one.
Oh,
But it
Turkish.
glows.
Well, Turkish,
The
yeah. And
UV
the
glows
the
for
green, right?
the
So you need
greens,
long
yeah.
wave. Long wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started doing my next kind of one of my little projects I want to do is get a laser engraver so I can start doing my digital artwork like this shirt.
Wait a minute. On the agates?
On the agate, right?
Stop it.
Yep. You got to look through your bin of gifts I gave you.
I got some digital work.
You got the I think I gave you the Minnesota on a salt rock like this, yeah.
Okay, let me look. Well, I'm gonna look in real quick.
So this one I did had it laser engraved my little fish design, and then I did hand carving, added an Ethiopian opal in there.
So it was the.
Yeah, let's check
What,
that one out.
long
Here's
way?
that Turkish one.
I like when we can do this
Oh,
all
wow.
live and in person. We can just all get
Even
stuff.
with the lights on, you can see.
Oh, the green.
If you
yeah.
so here, let me
Oh,
hold
you got
it.
You went through the lights right here. Like for real, turn them off.
Let's see.
Yeah. Oh, it's Christmas.
So the green and red.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Wow.
You got it?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see what else we got here.
Well-
Well, we got a little turtle. This was just a
Oh.
beautiful Lake Superior agate where it had just a natural, really nice face on it. Where I wouldn't want to do anything with that. And basically the red husk on there, where there wasn't anything showing, it was just solid red. I just did a little sea turtle on the side there.
And let me see if I can bring up. Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. So the other thing that Wayne does that
Thank you.
is
Susie.
like on a whole other thing. So you've made a lot of these designs that incorporate, agate, fortification banding and different things. So how did you get into sort of the digital design?
Yes.
What do you know? College is good for something. No, I was playing around with a picture of actually my dad in Photoshop, and I just stumbled on a process where I was like, wait, I could make agate patterns in any outline of
Wait, is that what you went to college for?
graphic design and advertising.
Oh,
yeah.
dude, that totally makes sense. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of learned Photoshop and Illustrator in school and just playing around with that. I really haven't made a ton of new digital designs lately. I've got to upgrade my computer here, but
No, those are sweet.
it's a lot of fun. Basically,
Look at that
yeah,
turtle. I love it.
you could take a photograph, simplify it, and turn it into an agate.
It's so crazy because I'm so new to like agate art, and it's so it's like endless creativity. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and some of these the fish are always, my favorite where you can just see
Dude,
the,
that's just so
the agate lines in it.
cool. That is so cool.
Yeah, there's one. I don't know if you've got the like northern with like the sunfish in the stomach. This one here.
Yeah, mine. Oh yeah, that is on there. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, this is one of my my favorites where it's got the northern pike with the little sunfish inside the stomach.
That's cool. That's really cool. Very creative. So I was gonna show. So I found it.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Yeah,
So if you want to look at that,
the Minnesota design.
how
on my
cool is that,
sweatshirt.
guys? Like lasered onto a rock. What? Like that is cool. And so you're gonna start doing more of these?
I'm gonna start doing more of these. I've just been
I love it.
having other people do them now and saving up to get the laser. But like one like that Minnesota, I did one where I hollowed out the little eyes in there and put Ethiopian opals
so
or little
cool.
lapis, little accents in there.
So cool.
Mm.
I'd like to make custom boxes for a lot of my pieces. Is another thought with the laser. So many ideas.
Yes. It's like it's like endless. Well, you're making it endless because you come out with something and it's something else, and everything is just so fresh. I love it.
So I know with the like Wayne's World agates, you've got, like you've mentioned, like Turkish agates. I know you've done like Purple Passion, like a whole bunch of. So how did you get into like the worldwide agates? Did you just think like, oh, Lakers are great, but there's like other stuff out there, or like how did you like?
I was
into that?
kind of a purist and really didn't even know too much about other agates. I would say that was a good 15 years ago. I was really into picking agates, and I was up at the Two Harbors Rock Shop on the North Shore, and they had this beautiful, just black and white Botswana agate up there on the shelf. And I'm like, oh, how much is that? He brings it over. He's like, $10. I'm like, $10? Only $10? I like these. I want more of these. I really kind of fell in love with Botswanas. That was my second agate from around the world. And then my friend Chris, he passed away, but he got me into Purple Passion. He got me into Turkish agates. Agate Mafia. A good friend really got me into all those other ones, and I just kind of fell in love with it. And you just keep finding out, even now, I've been in it for so long. Ben was telling me about some locations I don't even know about. You know, in Mexico, it's crazy how many different locations and how many different types of agate are there.
Yeah.
It's just kind of exciting to be able to think that you could go to that many different places. Like, I've been to Arizona. We looked for the at the 4th of July Bluff. We drove out in the desert, me and Chris, and we were looking, and I saw just a little agate out the window of the truck because we were looking for a good spot. And in between these two ravines, like right in the intersection, they were everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere. I found a third of a 5-gallon bucket full of agate.
Can't, yeah, out
blue,
near Death Valley, you can too. It's just like you turn around and they're just like boom, 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 boom.
And some
boom,
of them
boom.
were really pretty, and a few that we cut actually had purple in the middle.
Oh shoot!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. So I'm just thinking, but I didn't want to interrupt. So Wayne's World came from like agates around the world, not Wayne's World. Woo, 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 woo.
No, that was me as a kid. Everybody was saying I was always in my own world. So welcome to my world.
Wayne's World,
Party
party time,
It
excellent.
is. Yes, it was originally.
It was.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Where's Garth? I don't
If
know.
you really started it off like agates around the world and it really didn't come from Wayne's World, I was like, why?
Yeah, totally did.
Okay, fair enough.
So I know you had some other like bigger personal finds. So I know like we had, you know, Chase the Agate Dude on. He was, I think, our second guest on season 2. And you know, we talked a lot about, you know, sort of some of the agates. So do you have some of the like just different types, or some of the like, I guess like you have some amazing agates here. So do you want to show some of the like other ones or some of the bigger ones?
I will show you one of my best days picking in, 20 odd years of picking. My one roommate, he's like, oh, we should go picking today. We should go. It's raining. It's raining. Well, they had dredged out this pond and piled up this rock. It was pound to 3-pound rock, and it was this ginormous pile. We had been waiting for it to get washed up. I'm walking in. I find this 5-ounce, just really beautiful red and white.
Okay.
Just an exceptional one. I mean, I am ecstatic to find one like this in 4 or 5 hours, to be honest,
I
we're walking in
one
and
ever. I mean, those are great.
Well, that's, Amber really found today how difficult it can be.
There's a lot of imposters. A lot of imposters out there.
The
And you go up there
jaspers,
and you're
yeah.
picking them up and you're like, no, it's not. And you get your hopes up a lot. So it definitely, it's interesting for me because I do different rock hounding. I like to go to different areas. I mean, no matter where you go, the rock hounding is different everywhere. And so, like, I had not done this yet, and everybody asked me, and I'm like, I don't know why I haven't. So this was like, I'm so happy that I was able to do it with you.
That's awesome.
And when you don't ever do anything, you're just like, you're not really knowing what to expect and how to do it, or you know how to look for rocks, but you know exactly like what you're looking for, certain characteristics, and those imposters trick me more than they trick Ben. So it was like I'm getting tricked every time I'm turning them up, and then I feel a little defeated because I keep picking up these imposters. And then I turn around and Ben's got a 1.5 pounder. So
Yeah, I still can't believe.
I was shocked too. I thought the possibility was in that field. Actually,
so if you're a first timer, well, before we, I'm not gonna cut you off because
No,
I have
go
a question about this, but
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about like first timers, like people who are new into collecting agates, and they're like, oh, I know people who found them in Minnesota, and you decide that you want to bring you and your spouse and your family to Minnesota because you want to find an agate, a Lake Superior agate. We'll talk about like where do you start, where do you go, how do I find one, and I don't live there and I haven't been there forever, those kind of things, because those are the kind of people that are going to be like listening. So
Yeah,
but
or do I go to Lake Superior because that's in the name?
right, so we'll dive into that, but let's dive into what we were going to start with you.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just saying, yeah, it was very unexpected to find a nice pounder, but the night before I had kind of went out and got permission
Yes,
to
get a you were scouting.
I scouted, so I mean, I put in 2 days last week and 2 days this week driving around, driving up to random houses and knocking on the door and saying, hey, you mind if I get permission to look in your field? You know, and more often than not, they gave me permission, to be honest. So it's not that hard to get permission to a good spot. You just have to be a little bold and go take the time. And I always tell people, just go during a good time in the evening when you'd want to be interrupted at your own home. Nobody wants to be interrupted at their own home. So go, 5 or 6 in the evening, before it gets dark, and go ask then. That's a perfect time. Right after we left, Ben, I was telling you about that field on the backside of where you found your pounder.
Yes.
Guess who got permission to that field that's super rocky? This guy right here. And it's a big rocky field. And he's like, yeah, come back whenever you want. Don't worry about it. So, kind of cool. Anyways, I was doing some scouting and it was raining, pouring. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good for them. I found this face up in the rain along with a handful of other ones this side.
Yeah.
He like showed us like 7 or 8. He's like, I found this in a half hour, an hour and a half.
And the day before, I was driving around obviously knocking on doors too, but I looked for a good 2 or 3 hours and I found just one like that big, and that was it. So, I mean, it can really be like Ben today. I didn't find much of anything. I maybe found a couple that were an ounce or this or that, some little ones that I gave to Amber, but Ben's bucket, he was just a whole bucket.
Yeah.
Ben's like best agate day ever here in his own like hometown.
When you said I haven't found a pounder and I just found one, I'm like, I did something right.
Right.
Yeah, I've got some
He's
little.
got tons, like all day.
Yeah, I
He's got agates for
should.
days,
Yeah,
guys.
let me see. Yeah, so I've got like this nice little kind of jelly one. It's got some bands in it. It's kind of hard to see. I pulled up. I didn't weigh this one, but this one's it's all mossy, so you can see it's probably
it's hard
about
to see
6
because
ounces
you're
or
not
so.
wet,
It
Yeah.
reminded me of that weird one you showed me from Glenn on the coffee table.
Yeah, and this one I will say I don't know
Here.
what it is. I will almost always find an agate when I'm walking back to my car. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it works, but I've got this is the one I found walking back to my car. So it's got just some crazy sort of dark bands on it. Now it's a little bit hard to see.
Yeah, it's got some nice monochrome color shit.
Good agate collecting day.
Yeah, I did post this if you guys were following on Facebook earlier. I found this one. It was posted up like this where it's got some quartz in it, and then I flipped it over and it's just got this
so beefy,
crazy bands in it. Let's see if I can get it a little bit wet, if the bands can kind of show up on here, but
oh, look at that translucency.
yeah,
That's gorgeous.
just some really nice bands. I thought this was gonna be like my best find of the day.
Yeah,
I was really happy when you found that. Like, you found a good one.
He found that one like first before he found the 1 pounder, and he was like, "Yeah, this is probably gonna be the best one I find." And then I find a 1.5 pounder.
Yeah, and then I ended up taking big rocks home too. So this is my biggest rock I'd probably grab. But on this side, you can actually see it's got an agate and host on it.
That's cool.
So these are always I love these because they're really great in teaching, because you can kind of teach people, hey, this is basalt, or or sometimes you'll find in rhyolite, and you can sort of say, these are the nodules that they were gas bubbles that filled in with silica, and the agates formed out of that. So yeah, it was a really good day.
Yeah, that's it.
I'll just say that. So I've got a whole other bucket
It's
full.
okay to say like I had a bad day. Best ever.
Yeah, it was a good day. Yeah, and I'm so happy Amber was able to make it out and
Yes,
you know,
yes.
look for agates, because it's one thing to sit and talk and look at people selling agates and whatever, but to actually get out in a field, pound the
That's
ground
great.
and
It's something I've been wanting. It's like I'm like, I take my kids places, or I take myself, or but I'm like, I don't really even know where to start, which will kind of goes into, let's talk about like, if you are like, I want to find agates but I don't know how to find them, or and you're not super social in the Rockhound scene, and you're one of those loners and you go and drive and do your own thing, because I'm that way too. And so we're going to give you kind of some information to help you find your own agates. But one thing before we go into there, I mentioned I do a lot of scouting for places too. We mentioned the word scouting. And for those who may not be familiar with that term or understand what that is, like, we probably know what scouting is through like basketball or, sports. And it's kind of the same thing where you're like kind of checking out places to see if they're worth your time. And there are certain characteristics and things that you're maybe looking for in that particular area. I know when I've scouted places, like what I'm looking for is not going to be particularly the same as for Lake Superior Agates. So Wayne, tell us, when you're out scouting, what are you looking for? Because this is, if you're coming out of town, it's really going to be hard to scout, right? Because you're kind of luck of whatever you find, and because you don't live in town, you live out of town. If you're closer, ideally you want to scout. So if you're going to scout, what are you looking for when you're scouting for Lake Superior Agates? And where are you scouting?
Well, there's lots of places you could look for Lake Superior Agates in Minnesota. So you've got rivers, lakes, construction sites, landscape rock, dirt roads, all sorts of places. And when I go, I try to go where other people haven't. Or if I go to places where people have gone, try to look where people wouldn't look in those places. When I'm scouting fields, though, I'm just looking for really rocky fields. In the right area, so around rivers or streams or lakes. Basically, if you think of most of the rivers or streams in Minnesota, they used to be huge and a lot wider. They used to be the Mississippi, to each side of the Mississippi, for miles on each side. You're going to be able to find agate everywhere in that direction. So
hold that thought. I just wanted to, for those who are watching and didn't know this, because I didn't know this because I'm from Ohio and I don't live in this area. And when I think of Mississippi, I think of down south. So I learned this like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that like Mississippi actually starts all the way up top in Minnesota, right?
Minnesota,
Like
Starts, yep.
Yeah.
And then goes all the way down to like Louisiana. Is that the last place?
yeah,
Yep.
and you can find
And
Lake
you
Superior
can
Agates.
find Lake Superior Agates all the way down south. Like, is that not? I didn't know that, and I know there's a lot of people who know about Lake Superior Agates that know that. But for those who don't, how cool is that? I thought that was the coolest
Yeah, and
thing.
Texas, is it? I think is the furthest they found them.
Yeah, and it's so they've actually, because they found that Lake Superior Agates are one of the oldest agates in the world. I believe they found older ones in Australia, but they found because
At least in this area, it is the oldest.
yeah, and they've got when there was to not get too into the weeds about this, but there's a mid-continent rift, and so
Actually, no. Let's do it. Let's.
You
want
wanna
to
do- all right.
No.
So we can get into.
Let's figure out how to do it, because that was good.
All right, so we'll get into some of the geology.
We're gonna go from like, what the hell are Lake Superior Agates? How did they form? So that's his area, and then we're gonna break down to what is scouting, how do you find them in Minnesota, and all that jazz.
Yeah, so Lake Superior Agates. So to get almost any form of agate, you need to have silica-rich water, usually superheated, and space for it to form. So usually you have lava, magma that cools. There's gas bubbles, and sometimes, like for Montana agates, you'll have what they call limb casts. So there was a tree that was encased in lava. obviously Lake Superior Agates being a billion-year old, there's no trees for them to form limb casts. So if you ever see a Lake Superior Agate limb cast, you know someone is lying because there's no trees a billion years ago.
Right.
So you've got to have, usually superheated water will come from lava and different things. So you've got a bunch of really rich silica and it'll hit your open holes and then it'll start to precipitate out the minerals. And agate is really interesting because it forms in, it doesn't form sort of straight out like a normal crystal. It sort of goes out on the sides and will start forming rings. And so you've got your agate will start to form in that. But with Minnesota, if you think about it, there are no volcanoes right now. So about a billion years ago, there was what we called the mid-continent rift, where literally the continent in the middle was splitting apart. And as it starts to split apart, it's sort of like mid-ocean ridges. Or if you look at what they call the Great Lakes of Africa, like Lake Malawi, Tanganyika, those are where the actually like Africa is splitting apart. And so we were splitting apart, and as that happens, you have volcanoes and magma and basalt and rhyolite and everything coming up. And so that's where you get all of the lava in Minnesota. And it's really interesting. You can go up on the north shore of Lake Superior. You can find things like columnar basalt at Gooseberry Falls. You can find different rhyolite flows. And there's just a whole bunch of really cool geology. But what ends up happening from that is that you've got lava that has really silica rich, and the water dissolves it and then can precipitate it out into the holes in the rock. And that's how you get the agates. And the reason we know that it's not, say, 20,000 years ago and it's actually a billion years ago is that the lava would erupt and cool and form rock. And over time, some of that rock would erode and form, rocks and tumble down rivers, and then sometimes would form into another rock like a conglomerate, from the river rock of eroded rock. And we have found agates in the eroded rock from the original source. So we know those agates are a billion years old because if you've got agates that form in a rock and then you find
yeah.
So, and then over the period of many, many millions of years, there's been different glaciation cycles. So the glaciers have come through and basically plowed over whatever rocks were on top of it, eroded all the way down to this billion-year-old rock, and then they keep pushing it down. And so down into about Iowa is sort of the range that people say you can find Lake Superior agates, but people have found them all the way into Missouri. And down the Mississippi River, they found them, again, all the way down to Texas, even Louisiana. So because it's a billion years of it sitting there, the glaciers have pushed it off and moved it. So there's a lot of variation with that. And so when you're looking for Lake Superior Agates in Minnesota, you want to look for where those glaciers have gone through the host rock, which is largely Lake Superior. And the reason Lake Superior is there is because it was rifting apart and forming basically the basin that the lake sits in now. And so the glaciers would come through, push it through Lake Superior, and keep going south. And so where you find that, you can find your Lake Superior Agates. So a lot of that is all the way into the Twin Cities and then into Iowa. And interestingly enough, you can actually find Montana agates in Minnesota, because the Yellowstone River, before the glaciers pushed down, actually went into Canada. And then when the glaciers came down, the river couldn't go up, north anymore. And so it kept going down. And then actually where the ice margin was, as far as the glaciers went, is actually the Missouri River. And you can tell because the Yellowstone River goes north.
There's one
hits
in there
the
in
Missouri.
the honey agate. That's a Montana.
Nice.
Yeah. So a lot of people call them honey agates in Minnesota. But they are Montana agates, and so it's literally
that's cool.
The Yellowstone River flowed into Canada, deposited agates in Canada, and then when the glaciers
pulled them down. That's so cool.
Manitoba, Canada?
Yes, so Manitoba, yeah. So there are areas where the Des Moines lobe of the Laurentian ice sheet came from Manitoba and pushed into western Minnesota, and there are people all over western Minnesota that found agates that look just like Montana agates, and people call them honey agates, and they are actually Montana agates. Cool. And it's interesting because then on the other side of the state, you'll find the Lake Superior agates, because those have come from Lake Superior and the Superior lobe name because it goes through Lake Superior, has pushed all those down. So anywhere that you look for your Lake Superior Agates is going to be where that superior lobe basically pushed everything through. And as we've kind of talked about, you can find it anywhere there is gravel. If there is a gravel road.
In Minnesota.
Yes, in Minnesota or Iowa or even Wisconsin. So you've got a gravel road, gravel in a farm field, gravel in landscaping rock, gravel on a rooftop. People have found them on rooftops from the gravel that they source from pits, gravel pits. Anywhere that you can find gravel in that area that the glaciers have been, or they're sourcing it from that area, you can find them. And Lake Superior gets really interesting because you can find them in areas that the glaciers might have been 100,000 years ago, because they've actually been further than the glaciers 20,000 years ago.
Right.
So that's where you can start to find them into like Missouri and Nebraska, because those glaciers went further, and because the rocks are so old, then you can find them. So that's sort of the whole geology of
it. And then, so if you're like, I've always wanted to go to Minnesota, and I'm a rockhound, and I want to find agates. Where do I find agates in Minnesota? And where do I find, or how does somebody who doesn't live in Minnesota and they're traveling here maybe specifically for agates, or they're gonna be here and they want to look for something, and agates would be a great thing to look for, what would you say, and how would you recommend them going about like looking for agates in Minnesota as somebody who maybe is not connected to the rockhound world, and maybe they're kind of just do their own thing? You know, what would kind of be their kind of course of action?
Yeah, even for Lake Superior, you know, people are like, I'm going to go to Lake Superior and find Lake Superior agates. Well, so does everybody else.
Exactly.
So unless you get there after a storm and when the sun rises, you're not going to be the first one on the beach. Or after the ice clears, that's a great time to go do it as well. But ideally, if you want to find some agates in Minnesota, I would say venture further away from the lake. Just think of the glaciers going southward and downward. You can look at particular maps of the different lobes he was talking about and see where they kind of run. But just even looking at the color of the rock, like I can tell by the color of the landscape rock, if there's a lot of gray type rock in it, it's more likely to have banded agates than if there's a lot of white chalk rock. Now you're going to find more of those honey agates in the white chalk rock. Like say, this apartment building in St. Cloud, I went tons of honey agates, and it was all that white rock.
Yeah, and that is so where the Lake Superior, the Superior lobe came down, that's a lot of basalt mostly. So you start seeing that gray or dark rock. That's largely what you're seeing. And the Des Moines lobe, which came from Canada, has a lot of carbonates. So your limestones and some of your lighter gray rocks. So that's why you start to see some of those differences with that.
So you would have them
so
obviously not go to the lake because it's kind of be overpicked, and if you're not coming on a good day after a storm, then you know you may not be very successful.
Not to say you can't find agates on the shore. I've found plenty of agates on the shore. It's just less
timing.
likely. But even up on the North Shore, if you go inland like 5 miles and look for a dirt road, there's going to be agates on the road.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about. And so dirt roads. So you're going to look at dirt roads. You're going to look at glacier maps and see where their deposits would be.
Yeah, if you look, I just remembered, I believe it's called the Cromwell Formation in Minnesota. If you look at any geological maps, there's a lot of geological atlases by counties, and you can read the descriptions and use those. Those are really handy. So just sort of a quick tip, if you want to find areas if you live in Minnesota, you can look at some of the county atlases and geological maps that, and they will say, a lot of them will say, when they list the descriptions, they will say, here's this formation, it's from the Des Moines lobe, whatever. And you know, okay, that is honey agates. And they'll say, Cromwell, from the Superior lobe has agates. That is what you want to look for. So those, public, geological service or survey of so the Minnesota Geological Survey is just such a really great resource if you want to go look for, say, farm fields. So farm fields are where you're going to be finding it in the source. So when we mention things like gravel roads, those are being transported from the source to another area. Those, or say landscaping rocks, or rooftop rocks or anywhere that you're finding, that kind of gravel, that's going to be transported from somewhere. So that is largely the area that you want to sort of find the general region for.
So my friend Blair, he lives in North Dakota. He comes to Minnesota looking for agates all the time, loves it. He recognized one of the buildings in North Dakota had Minnesota river rock around it. He was finding agates out there just because he knew what the Minnesota river rock looked like. So
Cool.
you get a certain distinct, like the gray rocks and all that, you really can be like, yep, there's going to be agates here. Maybe.
So rivers, you guys have a lot of
rivers
creeks
or
here?
streams. There's some.
Okay.
And like when the water goes down low, that's a great time in like rivers. The shores, it comes down, you can see more rock. Or just when the water gets shallow enough to walk in. I did some kayaking a couple weeks ago and did really well that way, just walking in the water and checking out different sandbars. So that's an option. Really.
Well, and I was going to say, and we mentioned gravel pits before too. There is I think it's Carleton County and Moose Lake has public pits that you can go to. There's 3 different pits. It now costs $5 for a permit. You can cover an entire group of people with one permit. But you can go and look in actual pits too. And because they're public, they're very picked over. But I have heard of many people finding agates in those pits. There's also Get Pickin' in Cloquet, which is another option where
I heard about that.
yeah, so you pay money and they take agate or rock that was from a gravel pit and what would normally be landscaping rock, and they have it dumped in basically a front yard. So it's an entire yard open of gravel that you can search through. So those are some of the sort of common areas of.
And for
things that
those
you
who
can
don't
do.
want to look at geological maps and they just want to look at a regular map that has states, that have states and cities, when you're looking at Minnesota, where in Minnesota are we talking?
In general, though, if you just look at Lake Superior and go south of Lake Superior, or follow the Mississippi down, it's going to be a very telltale of the geographical area that you can find agates,
Yeah, once you get sort of west of St. Cloud, it kind of gets into the Des Moines lobe and a lot of the Montana agates you might be able to find. But
And
for Lake Superior agates, yeah,
like Alexandria, you go that far, there's no agates out that way. St. John's, there's agates out that way. It's just a matter of how far.
And
Sauk Center's probably at the very edge.
And I say this as somebody who started off rock hounding, looking. When I started off, I didn't start off using a geological map. I started off just on a regular map, like I'm driving on the roads. And so, I found things based on what people would say about like location. Yeah. So, that kind of helps those people who are just starting off, who have no idea what a geological survey or map is and how to read them and know, what they're looking for. And they just know like a map that I use to drive. So that's very helpful. Like when you're talking about like, you go to Alexandria, that's way too far. You're not going to find, banded kind of agates versus, you stay in St. Cloud area and over.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And along Superior, obviously, it's not going to go too far west either.
Right.
I don't know. I've never been up that way to know how far it goes, but St. Cloud,
Yeah, and I've been in areas like say Park Rapids and Bemidji. Those are sort of, if you look at the map, they're sort of more straight kind of west of Superior in a way. So some of those places you don't really find much. But to kind of get to Joe's question here, how do you find the moraine terminus? I'm assuming you're mentioning like the terminal moraine. So if you don't know what a terminal moraine is, it's sort of like the farthest that a glacier went. And so it's the end of the glacier, and when it stalls out, it will dump a bunch of rock and form a moraine. To find that, it's really just sort of just doing your research and just sort of finding any, like I said, county atlases or things that mention sort of where the extent of, if you say like the Superior lobe or the Des Moines lobe, and just sort of looking at those maps. A lot of really good county atlases from the Minnesota Geological Survey will say these are certain moraines. And in Minnesota, they actually named some of them. So around, St. Cloud, there's the Alexandria moraine. And so you can actually look at it and it'll say this is the extent that the glaciers went and this is where it is. And usually those moraines might be really heavily gravelly because that's kind of where all the gravel dumped off of the glacier as it couldn't go any further. But once you go past that, there's not going to be anything. And then also, I don't want to miss too many of these questions because I know we talked for a lot of stuff. So Willie Rickard Rock Farm was mentioning to Wayne, he said you should carve some of the Missouri Haunted Ridge.
Which was like what I asked. What I
I'm not
asked you.
familiar with
But no, remember earlier I asked you. I said, "Is this from Haunted Ridge?" And you said, "Yeah, I think this is from Missouri." And I said, "Yes."
Oh, okay.
You
The
said
Jersey
the
quartz.
Jersey quartz. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to really, get one with thick banding, or some of them are just almost just the druzy. But
Yeah.
that would be fun.
And
Leave a mohawk of quartz on the
Yeah,
top of the
that's
skull.
totally.
and Sue's asked if you collect any moss agates.
Yeah, there's all sorts world-class moss agates in Minnesota. As far as moss agates go, you can get some of the most beautiful, solid colored for jewelry that there is in the world, really, for moss agates. So they're less common and less valuable as far as collecting goes. So there's not really a lot of market, and people kind of like, oh, I found a moss agate.
Yeah, but if you like them
If
too,
you like moss
Eddie
agates,
White.
you can get them fairly cheap, and
Yep,
they're
Eddie
really
White.
beautiful,
Eddie White.
high
He
quality.
was on my first season. He was like my first. He was my first season, episode 1, and that was fun.
Yeah, and if you do want to find Montana moss agates, I will say the Minnesota Mineral Club does a trip to Montana every Labor Day weekend, and we are actually doing trips with Eddie. So if you want to do some trips with Eddie around
Suze, you'd
Glendive,
love it, Suze. I know you'd love it.
yeah, and it's an amazing trip. We also look for dinosaur bones.
And you got your son, your husband. You guys, all 3 would love it.
Yeah, and Montana moss agates, I guarantee you, I have filled a 5-gallon bucket in a backpack in one day, and we do multiple days.
I need to go.
Yeah, I can actually. I'll let me grab. It's right behind me. I'll grab some.
Yeah.
Some for you, Sue.
Yeah,
Let me show you.
Let me tell you, he went down with Ben this last time. Like, oh my lord! Like he was showing me a Ben, like a BIN, a Ben, huge bin of Montana and moss agates. I was like, I asked him, how many trips did you take to find this? He was like, just one. Like, and it's like bin, like full of Montana agates. And so you have to understand, like, Montana's really a lot of untouched land, so there's a lot to be collected there.
Yeah, and the Montana agates are a lot younger than Lake Superior agates, so you're talking like 250 million years ago. They don't correlate with the Yellowstone eruption, but they're found in that area. So you'll find it's the Absaroka volcanics that they're found in, because they have found Montana agates in gravel deposits. They call it the Flaxville gravel that is older than the Yellowstone eruptions. So we know it's not from the Yellowstone eruption.
So are most of them wood replacement or wood type fossils? Because I heard that from somebody.
Yeah, I heard that too about the big limb cap.
So someone I actually just had this discussion with someone who said, I heard that 90% of Montana agates are from, say, limb casts or holes that were left from trees. And personally, I don't believe it. It just, if you think about a lava flow, you would need a ton of trees that it would have to, number one, be able to go over, but then also not burn up and completely collapse the hole. And just knowing how much we find of other agates, I don't see those, limb casts, especially, Lake Superior agates, so many other ones, we don't see that. The general shape of some of the Montana agates, I've got one actually on the top of my case back here that looks almost like a pancake that's really flat and round. That is 100% not a limb cast. So I think there are definite limb casts in Montana agates, maybe more so than other agates. The 90% or whatever it is, I don't think that's true. At most, maybe 20%. Just from a geologist perspective, and knowing how vesicular some of the lava can be, I just don't see that most of it would be from tree limbs. Also, if you think about it, if a lava goes over an entire forest, trees aren't going to keep growing and making new holes, but the lava will keep coming up and making new holes because you got more vesicles and lava tubes and different things. So
Yeah.
So they farmed in lava, though, most of them, you think?
yeah, so lava, and like I said, you can find, I do have limb casts that you can definitely tell this was a tree limb, a branch, or whatever. And what happens is when the lava encases that, it basically burns off the wood and leaves a hole.
Right.
But that leaves a mold that when it fills in with agate looks like a tree limb.
Right.
So I do know there are tree limbs and limb casts in Montana agates. I do not think 90% or 100% or whatever people are saying. I think that is an outrageous number that I just really don't think is true. But going back to the moss agates, so this was one that I actually found with Eddie. This is over a pound, and it's got some really cool banding. I call this the flame because it's got this white, really cool banding on it.
But speaking of that, I was just gonna say this is important. So we're talking about Montana agates, okay, and Lake Superior agates. And there's a very distinct difference between Montana agates and Lake Superior agates, and the most obvious one is banding, and that's a thing that we talk about in agates about like an agate has to have banding. And so then we talk about like, okay, is it visual or microscopic? And so you can kind of dive into that then.
Yeah, and there's, this one isn't going to be able to be seen too well, but this is a Montana agate I found. This is from a private ranch in Montana that our Mineral Club is the only club that is able to go. So if you want to go become a Minnesota Mineral Club member, let me just make myself bigger here so you guys can all see. So this is an agate that I found. I did not find it from this side, but you can see some of the darker areas. This is the moss part of it. But on this side, it is a sun-bleached agate, and it's got bands that only show up in the sun bleaching or the UV bleaching.
Right.
And it's something that I think a lot of people think that Montana agates aren't true agates because they don't have banding. But I believe a lot of it is clear on clear bands. And you can cut some of these Montana agates and get the iris effect. I don't have any on hand with me, but if you look for Montana agate iris, people will cut what looks like a clear Montana agate. And when they hold it up to the light, you can see rainbow colored bands that appear. And that's because it's the sort of the way that they form. It refracts the light, but they really are clear on clear bands. And like I said, if you're interested, for example, this one's got a really fun story. So this
is a moss agate.
This is a Montana moss agate. It's got really nice dendrites in it.
Yeah.
I found this last year, or two years ago, when I went out with Eddie, and I came back and I was like, my tire pressure's kind of low. So I filled up my tire pressure.
Random.
And then the next day we went to this ranch, and then my tire pressure was low again, and I had a flat tire, and I found out I had driven over a nail. So I had a flat tire, and it was a very, very hot day. It was like 100 degrees. I had to spend the whole morning getting a tire patch kit, pumping on my tire, changing tires, doing all this stuff. And it was about 1 o'clock, and people were coming back and being like, it's too hot, I'm done. And I'm like, I just got started. I just fixed my car. I need to go out. And so people had gone out on this dry creek that we go up. And I don't know how many people had gone by, at least probably 20. I walked probably 10 yards up this creek, and this was sitting there, just like this, with the moss just showing just like that.
So cool.
And so everyone had walked over it. So it's just another example of, sometimes people don't know what they're looking for. But this is an example of that, Montana moss that we find at that ranch. And then if you polish it up, this is one of my first face polishes that I've done on my own. And so this is sort of the husk of it. And this is my my face polish.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
So really the difference in the two, though, is the translucency you see in the Montana.
Yes,
and
they are really
the opaqueness
opaque,
in
yeah.
Lakers, where
Yeah.
the only opaqueness that I've seen really in the Montanas is with the sun bleaching.
Yeah, so the Montana agates, because of the different chemistry in the water and the age and different things you've got, they're in Minnesota what they call honey agates, and in Montana you will really find what they call honey, where it's a
Honey
slightly
agate.
yellowish color or clear, and they will just glow in the sun, and they're amazing. These that you find in Montana with sort of this white coloring on it, this is your sun bleaching, and a lot of times you find these in the old deposits because the Yellowstone River went up, or maybe the glaciers moved around, and they sat out for thousands or maybe even millions of years, and when they sit exposed to the sun,
Yeah.
they get this white bleaching that it just bleaches everything white, and there's no way to get rid of this. You can't put it in CLR or acid or anything. You have to grind it away because the sun has literally
Yeah.
just bleached it under UV reaction.
Yeah.
So
Does it glow under UV? Most of them, the Lakers do when they're sun bleached.
yeah, well, and some of the Montanas do. I've got a lot of them that they will glow
I was
almost white.
confusing them with Sweetwater. With this,
Sweetwater?
where they're like green. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, so there is quite a bit of Montana and also the Sweetwater in Wyoming. They've got uranium in them,
Yeah.
so there is quite a bit that will react
To
green.
long wave.
A lot of Montana agates actually, I would say maybe 15-20% actually will UV react white.
Oh, okay.
So they're
That's
very
cool.
interesting. And then also the other thing in Montana that you'll find a lot is petrified wood. The petrified wood on the Yellowstone is really nice because it's silicified, so you can tumble it and it looks just great and polished. But I will say a good chunk of the petrified wood in Montana will actually fluoresce orange. And I don't know what it is. I've talked to
That's
people
cool.
in the Fluorescent Mineral Society. They've told me it's caliche, but if I tumble and polish it, it's not a coating.
Oh, okay.
So that's another really cool thing that you'll sometimes find in Montana. But if you, like I said, if you're interested in Montana, anywhere there's gravel along the Yellowstone River, where the river is or used to be, you can find Montana agates. I would say if you want to get better at finding agates, there's so many in Montana that going there will help you determine, like say, sort of this waxiness and some of the sort of concentric fractures that it'll get when it tumbles down a river. You start seeing that and you start finding more Montana agates. It'll really help you when you go to look for Minnesota agates or any other, sort of agates where you start seeing that waxiness or the shape or the concentric sort of fractures or chatter marks, as they call them. As
Conchoidal fracture, right? Isn't that what they call it?
Yeah, so the conchoidal, sort of the horseshoe, the concentric, crescent shape. Those, if you start finding those, which is a lot of how the silica kind of breaks and it's tumbling down, rivers or whatever. When you start seeing that and getting your head to see that is when you will start finding way more agates than just Montana. And I found myself finding way more Minnesota agates when I found more Montana agates. And there's so many Montana agates that if anyone loves agates, I swear, just go to Montana. You will find you will find. I have found easy.
Yeah, because it's not very easy to find Lake Superior agates, by the way.
Like cherry agates.
I mean, it's exciting and fun and they're gorgeous, but I'm just saying, like, if you want a challenge, Lake Superior agates. If you don't want a challenge, Montana agates.
Yeah, you will find. I have easily found 20 to 30 pounds of Montana agates in a day.
I mean, Montana's just got so much untouched land. You got like land to population is very like different. So there's so much that there's not being collected there. So if you're somebody who wants to collect a lot of things, like just in general, there's a lot to collect in Montana.
Yeah. So, but yes, in Minnesota, there's definitely a lot. There's at the Moose Lake State Park, there's a agate and geological center. So, if you want to see some examples of Lake Superior agates, that's always a good resource too. But there's just, so much that, and honestly, there are agates in I think almost every state. So if you ever want
There's
to
not
travel
any in
somewhere,
Ohio, so you don't look there. It's none in Ohio.
yeah, but Kentucky nearby. There's
Okay,
there's
wait, I
Kentucky
lied.
agate.
There somewhere in Ohio. I lied because I said this. I remember I messaged you. There
There's
is
some
some
Kentucky.
place in Ohio that has carnelians.
Yeah.
But they found one. I would not tell someone to go to Ohio looking for agates.
It's minor magold.
Yeah, hey, mine are my gold. Yes. I
Yeah,
love-
so if
Hey,
you're in California, there is so much in California. I don't even know where to start. So you can find like on California, like some of the northern coast and into Oregon, you can find agates on the coast. I've found some there. Up by like the redwoods. I've found some there, but there's also if you go into like Baker, California, I went into the Katy Mountains and I found some amazing agates there. There's a lot of places. So California is a big place. Yeah, and Sue says Ohio has Flint too.
Yes, Flint. That's about it. No, I'm just kidding. Like, but there's a lot of great stuff in Ohio, but it's like it's in limestone. It's deep down. It's in quarries. You got to get permission. So it's not like you can just go knock on someone's door and say, "Hey, can I check your field? Can I check your quarry?" No.
Yeah. So I guess too, is there any other like maybe fun stories you've got of some of the
No,
agates
let's
you've
look
got,
at
or
let's look at that one case. And
the
let's
big
look
one?
at that. What was her name? Mama Jamma?
Big
What was-
Bertha?
Big Bertha.
Big
Mama
Bertha.
Jamma.
Oh yeah, I never
Big
got to
Bertha.
finish. I never got to finish
What's her
my
name?
story.
Big
of-
Bertha.
We'll show you Big Bertha, but so I was telling you guys a story earlier. I found this walking in, and my roommate asked me, he's like, "Oh, why did you put your backpack on?" I'm like, "Well, duh, I'm gonna find a big agate." I found that one on the way in, and then I found a really cool 12-ounce
gosh.
one, really nice.
What?
Just you would be ecstatic. I mean, I would be ecstatic to find something like this.
Yeah.
myself. Just one of these in the summer even. I'm happy with. I was looking down. I was on this pile. My roommate's on the other half of it, way on the top of the pile, and he could just kind of see my head looking over. He's like, "You look pale as a ghost."
What?
I look over and I'm like,
Why?
I think I just found the biggest agate I've ever found.
What?
And you just look pale. And this thing was sitting
Oh my
about
gosh.
15, 20 feet down. I could see this much of it. I'm like, holy smokes. I was just beaming, but this was after my friend Chris had
That is-
passed away. There's a little heart on there, even
Sick.
on that side.
That's sick.
I call it the swamp thing, though. Let's see.
And how big is that?
This is 4 pounds.
That's
2
crazy.
ounces. If you remember the old movie The Swamp Thing, you can see the 2 eyes in the
Yeah.
mouth there. So anyways, I found that, and then I found another 12-ounce agate after that, a hurricane one. So one of my best days picking in a matter of like 2 hours. So over 20 years, that pile of rocks, definitely one of the better days. But here is what Amber was talking about.
These are
So my aunt, the backstory on this, I'm sitting at Christmas and my cousin hands me this agate and I'm like, oh, the first thing I said is, oh, I could clean that up real nice for you. But my aunt found this when she was like 15 years old. A road or a pitch. You can't
that's
remember that.
crazy. That's Big
Meet
Bertha.
Big Bertha. 3
That's
pounds,
huge.
12 ounces.
That's
The banding, the
insane.
contrast banding is
You
just
couldn't have given me a better agate because peelers are some of my favorite. And they call them peelers because the layers are almost peeled away like an onion on them. So it
That's
actually has a little bit
crazy.
of sagenitic sprays over here.
Love that. Oh my
Saginate
god.
sprays.
What a find.
Yeah, just crazy. And it's kind of cool. The one end, it shows a little window into there. But definitely, my aunt saved me some money. I was like, she wanted me to cut this up and make a piece of jewelry for her and my cousin's wife. I'm like, oh no, I've got much nicer agates for jewelry.
We're not cutting Big
don't
Bertha.
cut that. Don't cut that. No.
I went down the farm driveway after the Christmas and I literally was like, oh, For about 2 weeks, I think I was in shock to have that agate.
Yeah, I always joke when people are like trying to sell us bigots. I'm like, yeah, it'd be great tumble, just break it in a bunch of little
Right.
pieces.
A lot more agates if we break it up.
Yeah. Oh man.
But another really epic time out picking. So I'm going to just show another quick 2 here. This one's over 2 pounds. Just crazy blue tubes. This is a moss agate, so we were talking about moss.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, well, I wouldn't say this is fragmented. It's more just tubey moss.
Yeah.
Beautiful blue. I was on a pile in a pit, and this was really dirty when I found it, but not more than 10 steps over. This is probably one of the best quality agates I found in 30 years. Just crazy.
Oh,
bright
look at
contrast.
those bands.
And some blue quartz in it even.
So special. Look at that.
There's
Wow.
a huge vug or void into
Yeah.
it too. But just, a matter of a half hour I found,
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Like, these people are telling me they're finding. Oh yeah, real quick. Let's shout out Cody.
Yeah. Hi to Cody.
Cody, Minor Mom,
Quartzy Kurt, if you're out there.
Katie.
What's he cool?
Oh, the Rock and Art Shop. Ben is great at explaining geology and agates with a wealth of knowledge.
Crescent City has an agate beach. He's in
Eric,
California.
hey Eric.
So here's one more here. This one I was out with the Rock and Art Shop, my buddy Mark. We were in the pit and walking around this big pile of rock. This thing was so dirty. I spotted this peeler. I saw this little nook in here all dirty.
Oh.
I'm like, no way. Just a water wash. I don't think it's quite 2 pounds, but just crazy water wash. Orange peel on there.
That's nice.
I'm like, I gotta go show Mark. Run around the inside of the pile. I'm like, oh, check it out. And I literally went up about 10 or 15 feet on the pile.
No way.
Blue and pink moss with smoky in it. I don't know if you can get it where you can see that pink in there.
Oh,
Wow.
look
Pink
at
and
that.
blue
Yeah,
is
look at
just
that.
really rare for
Yeah.
the Lakers. And it's got some more of the moss actually in other pockets. Let's see if I can see.
Yeah.
You get little shotgun patterns with the moss mixed in.
So speaking of which, as you're showing that one, so what kind of characteristics would somebody be looking at when they're okay? I got permission in this field, and I'm driving 10 hours to come here because they use OnX map, and they found this landowner that's in a great area for agates, and they got permission, and now they're here. How do they know what an agate looks like lying in the soil on a field? What are they looking for? What are the characteristics?
Right. Well, the telltale red of Lake Superior Agates, like the flower carving here, it's really this particular type of red. And you were saying how all the jaspers and all that were
Because
catching
there's
your
a
eye.
lot of imposters.
There are a lot of jaspers that are very close in color,
Yeah.
but they don't have translucency. A lot of them really don't. They're opaque. So the Lakers have translucency. So I was telling her, early morning or evening when the sunlight's hitting, you'll get the light shine through it. It almost glows like amber,
Yeah.
in the sun. So that's the ideal time to kind of go look. Or, if it's raining, they're popping out more. But I'm looking for the banding. So the banding, or on the outside of the husk, you can see, well, we'll just show you this even Turkish one, how there's little vugs and voids. Lakers have more dimples in them.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see if I have a good example. I don't really, but it's basically the outside of
like
the
bubbly.
vestibule has little pucks and
Yeah,
bubbles into
pits.
Yeah.
So that pitting is a telltale giveaway. There's a lot of different things. The paint agates will really have this particular bright orange. Like I found one today and gave it to Amber. It was just this bright particular orange. You don't see any other rocks with that orange in Minnesota, so that's a Lake Superior agate right there.
Right.
Um,
Really, anything that is red, or like I told Amber, anything that has a limonite stain on it. So there's a yellow.
Limonite's a dead giveaway.
I don't know. I had. some
Although I
that had
found some
limonite.
quartz with limonite on it too.
Yeah,
But
a lot of.
but the quartz is going to be like this bright white, and when you look at quartz, you just know it's quartz. So
Yeah, silica based rock will really could have some limonite staining on it in Minnesota. But if I see limonite staining or it's red,
That's
it
an
will
indicator.
it will always give me a second look. It might not be an agate, but I will always give it a second look because I've had so many times that, even today when I found this pounder, it's almost all black, but
Yeah, that's
it's got
that's
it's
a
got
tricky one.
it's
He
got a little
showed
bit
me,
of
I'm
red.
like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Part that kind of pissed me off because I rocks like that all day, okay? And they were not agates. So when he finds one that looks like ones that I've been looking at all day and it's an agate, I was like, man, were those other ones agates?
And that
Yeah.
one's definitely on the far spectrum of being quite different than most.
It's super different. Yeah.
Yeah, it just had this, honestly, this little bit of red was all that I saw that made me give it a second look. My initial thought was it's too black. You'll see some things that look almost like seam agates that will be sort of a black, almost chalcedony. And I usually know what they look like, and I was almost like, that almost looks like it. But there's some red running through it. And I said, okay, well, there is red. It's waxy.
Waxy, yeah.
It's got,
Waxy.
you can see some
That's
pits in
indicator.
it. Those are some of the pitting going on right there. And so I said, you know what? It deserves a second look. And when it, I can play the video here.
So waxy and pitting.
Yeah, so I'll
Bands.
so
Quartz is a dead giveaway. Sometimes you'll see a spot of quartz and you're like, oh, could that be an agate? You flip it over and there's actually agate and it's not just totally quartz.
yeah, so again, this is how I found it.
Yeah.
It was face down like that, and then when I pulled it over, the whole face that has all the bands were just covered in dirt. So the one thing that you really want to make sure that when you're looking for agates, that you start to learn is when you go on a beach or a gravel road, you might find the chips that look like glass and they're translucent and they're great. But when you start trying to find the husk and what a nodule will look like, though, that's when you start to find more and more and more agates. So like with this one, like I said, I couldn't even see the bands in it until I started wiping it with my hands, and then I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So that's really it. I did find let me see
Hey,
if I can
Brian,
find
hey,
it.
Tony.
Yeah, so for example, here's a little nodule that I found
Oh, that was a good one.
today.
Peel on it and everything.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a peel. It's got some white to it, but it is a full nodule. There's no visible bands on it. But when you start to see that pittedness,
Yeah.
and it's a reddish color, it's got a
It
waxy
kind of
luster.
reminds me a little bit of like a big fat hamburger patty that's like
A little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that.
like
Golf ball divots.
yeah, with the redness
Yeah.
and the pitting and the like
Yeah,
a raw
so-
hamburger patty, a raw one.
Yeah, so if you're what I kind of tell people, it's a lot of this is like fishing. You could go out, there could be fish there, you might not catch fish. You go out there, there's agates there, and like we've said, the pounder that I found, if I was 1 foot probably over in one direction, I probably would have missed it. So you just have to be lucky. And then there's an old saying in fishing that hook sets are free, which means if you think there might be a fish, just try to set the hook and reel it in. Same thing with agates. I tell people all the time, if you think it might be an agate, pick it up. Because the worst case scenario in that is you take something that's not an agate, you bring it home, and then you toss it in your rock garden. But again, you might see something that you like. I have picked up so many, not even just this weekend, but before that, you see something that you're like, this does not look like an agate, but maybe it's got limonite staining, or it's got some shape that like it might look like crystal impressions or something. And you take it home and you clean it up, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, actually right here there's bands on it, and this is something else, and whatever. So if you're going out to look for agates, it's pitted texture, a red color. Sometimes they can be white or black or even blue. Limonite staining is a dead giveaway, and sometimes the shape. Just remember, these fill gas bubbles in lava, so if they're more of a bubbly shape, and they're not broken in any way that you can see a window and bands inside. These full nodules, and these are so much fun to cut because you never know what's going to be inside.
And something I noticed as a first timer, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you're gonna find agates that are like jagged, sharp edges. Like they tend to be rather rounded, like from what I've seen. But you can find some jagged
Sometimes they're broken.
but like
whatnot,
they
but
can be
Yeah,
like they can be
it's-
sharp.
So, well, the times that I've seen more sharp edges are in farm fields, and a lot of times it's when the plow has hit
hits
them.
it,
Oh,
breaks it.
okay.
So you'll see
Okay.
some that people have found that they're, I've been so disheartened because I have found a chip like this that is just this thin and it's this big, and I'm like, and you can tell a plow hit an agate, chipped off a piece of it, and you're like, where is that pounder that piece came off of? And you're like, it's probably 20 feet up and 3 feet below the surface, but you can kind of see that, but it's really just anything that looks like an agate, just pick it up because you never know what it might be.
I was gonna say, just when I look on the river, any telltale sign like he's talking about on the river, you have no idea. Like I picked up this rock, I'm like, maybe it's got little divots in it, A pound agate, no quartz, just beautiful. It was my nicest agate of that year, but I picked it up and I wiped some of the algae off, and I'm like, no way, that's an agate. I didn't think it was at all. There's been so many of those, but yeah, looking for any telltale thing and investigating, because if you just ignore them all unless they have bands, you're gonna miss so many of them.
Yeah, and if you do want to come out to Minnesota, like it's really, anywhere that you can find gravel, I'd recommend, either going to like the Moose Lake Public Pits or Cloquet. Give yourself some time. That there's so many farmers that if you literally walk up to their door or you see them outside and just go up and say, hey,
Your agates, but they have like they're like would they be considered like water level agates? Are you familiar with article agates?
there's a lot of quartz, but I don't know if I've seen agates.
There is. So. Yeah, there absolutely is. There's a couple they sell Arkansas agates. They live on a farm that has them. I'll have to end this video. Willie, because I believe who the couple that I'm talking about is not far from you, Willie. I will message, or I mean, I'll reply to your comment with the people that sell the agates in Arkansas. They're like, they remind me of like limestone, like kind of agates, like cold water agates.
Right. Yeah. Minnesota, we call them cold water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other story.
Agates
that form a limestone.
Yeah, so I'm almost positive that that's how they're formed. But there is a large alkaline complex in Arkansas, so they could very easily. I don't know the geology behind them, so I'll just put it that way. But I do know they're there, and Willie, I'll comment you the people that sell them.
Okay. And
learning new things every day.
Thank you very much for all this. Is there anything, maybe other stories or things you want to show before we kind of close this out?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to see a few more things. We could
Is there
show
any
you
other
something.
questions? I really feel good about this episode because we dove into a lot. I want to do this more, because I try to kind of think about the mind of the person who's watching this and they think this is a really cool show and they're like, okay, I don't know what that word is and I don't know what this kind of map is, and just I want to do this but I don't know how to start. So I really like how we like really dove into that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And that approach for other
Yeah,
shows, so I can
yeah,
find out
yeah.
where to go other places
Yeah,
in the
like-
country to look.
Yeah, like I like how we're able to really explain a Lake Superior agate and everything. So if you have any questions on Lake Superior agates, let us know.
My
Or
friends,
Yeah,
even,
or-
my
or-
friends
or
were joking
Wayne,
about
I
me
mean, our
being
guests
eagle
here.
eye. My friends were joking about me being eagle eye because I go clean up all the stuff they missed.
Wait a minute, I
after
was
they
like,
did.
that was not a joke because today he was like picking up the tiny little ones. He's like, oh, that's an agate, that's an agate, that's an agate. I was like, how can you tell?
I don't bend over for too many that aren't.
Yeah, and and two, there's your lapidary and carving and stuff. It's
Oh, it's
just amazing.
amazing.
Too.
Oh my
yeah,
God,
I'm so glad you
amazing.
could share some more
Yeah, and if
information.
you guys want to see how to do the carving, you can watch me live on
Oh,
TikTok.
it's so interesting. I love his lives.
Willie Rickard Rock Farm says to show him a mushroom.
Yes,
You
show
have-
him like the
Oh, sure.
mushrooms. The mushrooms are my
or
favorite.
carving or
I've
some
got
of the other ones
several
here.
ones here. So
They're my
here are
favorite.
some that I actually did with beach stones from Lake Superior, just like the little happy mushrooms I used to draw as a kid. But just pieced them together with some 330 epoxy. Really works great for messing with stone. Here was another one. They call them Omars.
Oh, Omar. Yeah, you have a lot in your front
Oh.
yard. I was telling him, I was like,
Cool.
look at those Omars. Yeah.
So we did another one with
Those
these.
are, we have so many on Lake Michigan.
Omar friends.
I just quick. Hi Chase. I see your comment there. Chase Pipes.
What's up, Chase?
By the way, we had discussion about artifacts today, so Chase, you might be seeing
Yes.
some pictures
I
of different
yeah,
artifacts.
we were talking about you today. We're gonna Wayne's gonna send you some pictures of some artifacts. I was
Yeah,
like,
we
I
think we
know
found some
there's
artifacts.
somebody
Okay, sure.
who can definitely, if he doesn't know, he can direct you in the right spots.
Yeah, but to answer your question, Lake Superior Agates are over 1 billion years old. I believe the
1.2, I think.
we have 1.2 or 1.1 million years, billion years old. So they are extremely old. That's the basalt that and rhyolite that they form in, and they found that in others. So, they are very very old.
Oldest in this area, like
Second oldest in the world that I've heard.
Australia?
Yeah,
Australia's
yeah, so-
oldest, and then ours is the second oldest.
Yeah.
I think.
and then it was the mid-continental drift.
Yeah,
Or
rift. Yeah,
rift.
rift. Yep,
Rift,
yep. So
yeah.
the mid-continent rift was the continent was literally rifting apart, which is why you see a lot of the Great Lakes here and also in Africa, because the continent was literally splitting apart. So you got a basin that fills in with water, and that's why Lake Superior is so deep, 300 plus feet deep,
Yeah.
because the Earth was literally splitting apart. And if there's anyone out there that wants to, be inspired to learn geology and figure out solutions to the problems that we don't know. People don't know why it was splitting apart.
It was failed. It was a failed rift.
Yes, and then just stopped.
Yeah,
No
it
one
was-
knows why.
It's a failed.
We
yeah.
don't know.
It was a failed rift. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to your mushroom carvings.
Oh,
Yeah.
we can do some mushroom carvings for sure. Yeah, here's the one I showed
Oh,
earlier.
look at those! They're so dark cute.
And
I
that's
love
the
them.
deer antler.
Yeah, white-tailed deer antler. And then Lake Superior Agate. That one's just covered in bands underneath. And then I use earth magnets on a lot of them, so they can stick on the stump and you can pull them right off and take a look at them.
Yeah, show them your little stumpy thingy. It's so
Yeah,
cute.
so here's
it's like
one.
wood with moss.
This is actually a Minnesota moose antler tip. My friend Zach Hartman goes looking for moose
Like
antler.
that is so. Like, how do you not love mushrooms and then agate mushrooms?
And then I did there's a little Uperlite one here.
Oh,
And
that's
then
cool.
The snail on here, he's got the magnet as well. Zippy number 2.
That's so
But
cute.
he actually has a Madagascar agatized shell for his shell.
And did you carve that?
I did.
That's just wild, dude. That's so wild.
I need to do a butterfly is what I decided. Ben gave me a little body and I need to
Yeah.
find the right cut agate. It would be
Yeah.
really cool to do one similar.
With eyes on the ends. Like, I don't know. I'm just imagining on the wings.
For sure. I don't know. Here's a really rare agate. Sometimes you just see things in agates, and this one was from my uncle's collection. I just want to show you guys super quick. It's the clown with the little white hat.
What?
Whoa. Wait a minute, you found it?
My uncle, I got this from my Uncle Kenny, and it came from my great uncle Fritz's collection.
So my uncle's uncle?
Right, yeah, he used to do lapidary work, my Uncle Fritz, and all my other aunts got his estate sale stuff. It all ended up with me.
That's cool. That's cool.
But I was digging through, I'm like, no way, that looks like a clown with a little white hat, literally.
That's crazy.
I
Wow.
was trying to think if there was another face one here. Anyways, yeah, kind of fun. One more random thing to show you. This is probably one of my best finds ever, too. Just crazy banded edges. We can
Look at
zoom
the
it in there.
bands.
This one actually has a
Oh.
parallax or shadow effect. But I saw this, it was early spring, and I was on this pile of rock. I'm like, oh, I gotta go wash that off.
Oh
I
my
hurried over to the first little piece of snow on
God.
top of this pile. I'm bending over, wiping it off. I'm like, no way. I look down right where I was wiping it off. There's another agate this size, and it's just a beautiful paint with some purples and pinks. I'm like,
Yeah, like and
alright.
so some of these agates can have amethyst. They can have geodes,
Smoky quartz.
druzy.
Yeah.
Like they're like sick.
quite a variety. We get almost all of the
Yeah.
formation types. There's not too many we don't get in Minnesota.
Well, limb casts. No limb casts because the trees
Right.
aren't there.
You gave me an idea earlier. I just need to carve little limbs out of Lakers and
That's
say,
the
look,
rock
I
is
got a
too
limb
old.
cast.
Okay,
handmade."
just so we establish that it's too old.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say because we're over time now, but thank
Yeah.
you very much, Wayne, for both the going out picking today.
Yes.
That was so much fun,
It
and
was
then
a lot of fun. You're my first one. First time ever hunted agate. Great
I'm
experience.
just glad you guys found some.
Yeah, and if you want, look up Wayne, waynesworldagates.com. He's got all of his digital art that we talked about. He's got sweatshirts, stickers, all sorts of stuff. And then follow him on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Wayne's World Agates, and Fine Art. You can find him there. He does live carving shows sometimes, so you can watch him literally carve different mushrooms, turtles, whatever he's working on.
And then I
You
do
can do
live
that.
sales
And
on
if you
Facebook
forget,
too,
if
selling my
you click the
artwork.
description of this live and the video for this, we always have whoever our guest is, how to follow them and where, to purchase items. So it'll also be in the description if you're like, okay, I remember it was Wayne something. It'll be in the description here in the live.
Yeah. And what were you saying about live shows?
Oh, I do live sales on Facebook of my artwork and gemstones and stuff when I don't have other physical shows going on. But thank you guys both for having me on the talk. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun today. So
Yes.
Yes, and I don't know if you want to
Yes.
introduce.
So Mineral World is how you say that. I came in contact with this incredible duo team. They're best friends on Instagram, and I've been following them, and I love their energy, and they're just like
Is it Switzerland that they're from?
not Netherlands. Yeah, no. Shoot.
Europe. They're
It's
the
Europe,
crazy
okay, guys? It's Europe.
Alps
Okay.
and
Yeah, so we will find out next 2 weeks. But they do travel. They are European prospectors, and they're Dutch. There it is. There
we
it is.
go.
Dutch. So they're the largest Dutch-speaking Rockhound prospectors in Europe, and they started like an online group and just building an audience on collecting crystals. And they're really cool guys, and I do like to have at least an international guest. So there's quite a bit of a time difference. Still, the next time we meet in 2 weeks, it'll be an hour later or earlier than we're normally. So if you're
is it?
Eastern Standard, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so it should be 7:45 Eastern time.
and then if you're Central, 6:45. So it's a little earlier, just because it'll be like 1:45 in the morning for them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I was like, well, actually, it was our normal time. It's like 2:45 in the morning. So I was like, we can like come, so it's not so early. So like they're staying up all night for us. Really excited to learn about their journey and just learn about the crystals that they find over in Europe. They go all over. And incredible rockhounds. So I'm excited to have them on next 2 weeks.
Yeah. So thank you again, Wayne,
Yes,
and
thank you,
Amber
Wayne.
for making the trek out to
Yeah,
Minnesota.
I love that. Like we could all come together. I wish we could do this for all of our guests. It's a lot of fun. This is a fun
was a
show.
lot of fun.
Yeah, and thank you all for listening. We should have this up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of that soon too, probably on Sunday. And then make sure to tune in May 15th for
Our
our
season finale
of season 3 of Rockhound Talk Live.
Yep. Peace out, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye, everyone.